Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Ashley Mailloux with producer Bobby helping us out as we preview a big day over at Woodbine on Saturday. It is Woodbine Mile Day. They actually have 3 Grade 1 races. They're all win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup. So let's take a look at the field, whether you're going to be wagering on the races this weekend or just watching. They're important races, Ashley, because we know that some of these horses will be running in just about a couple months in the Breeders' Cup. So this one is the Grade 1 Summer for 2-year-olds. This will qualify horses for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I think at first glance, looking at some of the horses who will take money in here, you have 2 Out Hero, who's been the best of the local horses. 2 Out Hero was the prep winner of the Soaring Free last time out, and you have the top 5 from that race all coming back. You also have the number 10, Wild Desert, who is Group 2 place for Charles Appleby. We spoke about those connections and how good they are when they ship in up at Woodbine. I think 9 for 17 in Group 1s. Then a couple other horses who have been pretty impressive winners. You look at a horse like Teddy's Rocket, who won very nicely over at Saratoga first time out of the box. I wouldn't be shocked to see any of them take money, but does look like at 3-1 and 5-2, we might have a top tier in the 5 and the 10.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The 5 and the 10 are maybe the horses to beat. I think the interesting thing is about half the field. Don't quote me on the number. I didn't count them, but around half of them, they've yet to go further than 6.5. And that's going to be key. We talked about it in our other preview, this being on the inner turf. This isn't a 1 turn, 1 mile now. This is 2 turns. So I think for a couple of horses in here, it may be a little bit more challenging. And for others, I think the 2 turns will help them.
That's going to be a big part of my handicapping with this race too. So I'm glad you pointed that out, Ashley, as we move to the pace projector. One thing that tends to happen too in a race like this, where you have a lot of these horses stretching out for the first time, they're going farther than they're used to. They just naturally show a little bit more early speed and may not quite be used to this longer distance. But of them, Marcus J was very quick in that debut. I wouldn't be shocked to see him right back up on the lead. But you have Kassan, who's wanted to be close up. You have a horse like Argos, who I don't think wants to be too far out of it. And we mentioned Flavian Pratt, who does a great job sitting close. Rude Procedure has good speed. I mean, you could go through this field and find a lot of horses, and towards the outside, horses like Jupiter and Teddy's Rocket, I don't think they want to be too far out of it, and they're wide, so I could see them even trying to be a little closer to keep from being wide. It's always a little tricky with 2-year-olds reading the projector, right?
Yeah, it's really tough for me to say, like, I agree with this or I don't agree with this. I mean, I think it's generally has the right concepts, but again, the configuration's different. And just a couple things to note here when you look at this. You're only seeing some of the horses. There's no data on the European runners. You're not seeing the 4 and 10 being part of this pace projector. And the 6 is nowhere on the screen. He's got the LP flag somewhere in Timbuktu. That's Bill of Ice, who exits a mile on a 16th event where he closed, but they didn't go all that fast. So that's why you're not seeing him here on the graphic.
And let's meet the field for the Grade 1 Summer, $500,000 up for grabs. And we will start out with Argos. Actually, there were 5 horses that come out of the Soaring Free on August the 16th. Argos finished 3rd that day. The race was won by 2 Out Hero. I thought Argos ran fine. He was about 2 lengths off. He moved up the challenge. He was wide and in between horses. That tried pretty hard behind 2 Out Hero. Nothing really to knock on that, but sort of tough when you have a lot of horses that are separated by not much in here. Like, do you take this race as a strong race? Do you take this race as a race that's not quite as strong? I think that's how I was looking at it when handicapping this field.
I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know how you really read it. I pulled this replay just because so many horses, as you mentioned, Gino, exit the Soaring Free. And in terms of performance, I think the main thing to remember, Argos had the outside draw. I do think at a couple of points he might have lost some ground. He doesn't miss much, in terms of getting second in here. Just 2 Out Hero was the clear winner by a length and a half. So I think that's something to note. Now he goes from having the outside to the inside. I think that helps him a little bit. He's not necessarily the fastest horse in the race, but he's not slow. And you already alluded to that with the time form pace projection. I think he might be in the second flight early with this drop.
Yeah, he could really sit a nice trip in here. We moved to Rude Procedure, who showed some speed. He actually moved to the lead early in that replay we were watching. In early stretch, he has the lead before fading in there, finishing 4th. Could you make a case for him? He was 30-1 in that race. Any chance he turns the tables on some of the horses who were in front of him?
Well, the question to be in his last 2, he has kind of, I don't want to say stopped, but he kind of leveled out in stretch where others were traveling better. So now he's going to stretch out in distance just like they all are. But I think the key with that is He's probably going to get a forward trip once again, somewhat forward. They hopefully will go a little bit slower. So I think if I were to use route procedure, I'm just going to say I'm not going to use him. But if I were to, in tickets specifically, he'd have to be at the bottom of the exotics.
We move to time frame, the number 3. It was inside of a couple horses who wanted the lead. So he backs off. He ends up sitting third on August the 16th over at Woodbine. And he moves up he's kind of sitting up the rail. And he really just gets going late. I thought it was a decent performance from him. He got a good trip that day, though. If you're just looking at speed figures, Ashley, he will need to take another step forward. But if you're talking about the human connections for this horse, you got Johnny V going up to ride for Mark Cassie and DJ Stable. So a horse who certainly passes the sniff test with the human connections.
Yeah, I think it's positive if you backed him in the debut. You're probably discouraged, and to see him take a big step forward second time out in the surface switch. I think you do have to like the last up performance. I do also like that it was going 7/8. So he's gone a little bit closer to the mile distance, but you talked about his figures. They're not on the quick side. Mike Beer and I have discussed this sometimes. I think with the younger horses, it's sometimes hard to gauge that number. I don't think it's impossible to see him take a big step forward because he did that from first to second start. So don't want to hold it against him, but I do think there are others in here that I found their resume to date just to be a little bit more intriguing.
We move to the secret adversary, the number 4. This is the Irish bred who comes into this race off a win over in Ireland on August the 8th. That was a pretty decent performance from this one. He was 4th. He was about 3 lengths off. He was sitting in the 2-path. He angled out. He was just traveling really well. He had nice late energy, and then he was wrapped up. He was one of the trickier reads for me in this race because I just don't know how those races are going to transfer over. He would be the type of horse who, if I'm playing a pick 4 or pick 5, I probably throw him in if he's 6 to 1-ish in that range because there is some serious ability there. Did you have a strong opinion on this one way or the other?
No, I think he's a wild card. Obviously, very, very consistent, was able to break through last time out, as you mentioned, and liked that effort in the left-handed race. But I don't know, these connections in terms of the trainer, they don't come to North America. No. They've come with one horse, and it was years ago. So to me, that's intriguing. They must think they have something, in their barn right now that could compete over here. And obviously, they probably have some Breeders' Cup dreams on the line. But just tough for me to really make an impression. I will just say that we know the Euros, they do very, very well at Woodbine.
2-out hero is just really logical in here. He makes a lot of sense. He's 2 for 2. He wins his debut sprinting on the synthetic. Career start number 2. They go 6.5 furlongs on the turf. He won the replay that we showed you in the soaring free, and he beat 4 of today's rivals in that race. My only knock on him would be he really did get a perfect trip in winning that race. The way it's set up, he just got to sit just behind horses. There was a little bit of a battle up front. He angles around. It just worked out really well. Probably won't get that kind of a perfect trip in a tougher field like this, in a big field. But if that's my only knock on a horse sometimes, Ashley, that's not really a knock, right? Because a lot of times horses like this one, they put themselves in those spots. So they're more likely to get the good trips and the perfect trips repeatedly. He just seems really solid in this field. Not the type of horse who I generally put on top on the win end, but a horse who I usually have in the second and third spots because I think that's a really solid horse and one they'll have to beat.
Yeah, it's interesting too to see him since the August 16th race. You look at his works. He's been working on the dirt in the last 2 and working really well in the mornings. It's like those last 2 races have taken nothing away from him. I do like that next time when we saw him out after the debut, they got him on the turf. Obviously, the first one was washed off the turf, but he didn't make the lead. It wasn't as easy on him, right? He had some targets in front of him and was able to get by them. I think that shows growth, right? In that you're learning along the way. And, he's going to have to navigate a trip. I think he's still going to be somewhat forward. Again, maybe a second sort of flight type in here. Same with Argos, right? I mentioned that earlier. I think those two will be somewhat close to it, but not necessarily on the lead. And in a lot of ways, he's the horse to beat. I know there's the shippers in here, but he demands some respect off his 2 starts.
He's the solid local horse who you feel like you're going to get the best effort from. He's just a really good fit in this particular race. We move to Bill of Ice. Actually, I like this horse a little bit. He's sneaky. He's very light on speed figures. That doesn't really bother me as much with 2-year-olds early on, especially when you have a horse like this. He's one of only 2 horses in the race who's actually gone a mile or over. you kind of pointed this out right in the preview early. Most of this field has been sprinting. He can sit back. He can make one late run. He got a really nice setup, but he actually looked like a total pro. He was in the second flight. He was about 5 lengths off or so early on. He dropped back a few lengths more because there was a runoff leader. He was about 8 off. He makes his 3 wide move, and he looked like a real pro. So I'm seeing a lot of the horses who I think will be forwardly placed. I'm looking at his pedigree too. He was a half to a horse named American Revolution, who actually won the Grade 1 Cigar Mile. So there's some legitimate class in this pedigree. Also a Grade 3 winner, Bold Journey, is a half sib to Bill of Ice. I know he's a big long shot. He's probably going to be one of the longest shots in the field, but I think he gets a setup in here and comes running late. What do you think about Bill of Ice?
Yeah, I'm just going to correct you on one thing. American Revolution, full sibling. So there's some.
There you go, right?
In terms of the pedigree, and I think you mentioned Bold Journey, who's kind of rekindled some of his form, returning to the grass, which in the past had been good to him. So pedigree's right there. I like what you said and sort of how you assessed his debut, and I just think at this sort of price, he deserves a look. Whether you use him on top, that's up to you. I'm not going to use him on top, but I think in terms of the minors, it wouldn't shock me to see him take a step forward. And the turnaround in terms of that race, it's not like he's had months off, right? He raced on August 24th, so I think that win gave them a lot of confidence.
Ashley, you can always correct me, especially when it's going to be something positive about a horse that I like. If you're adding to the horse I like, just keep on adding those things. Bring them on in. We move to Kassan. Should be forwardly placed in here, right? All 3 of his races, he's been right on the lead. Thought he ran well when finishing second. He was 7-2 when he was behind Two Out Hero last time out, and he battled on nicely. I'm just a little worried about the stretch out now with other speeds in this race in a big field, but I don't have really many knocks on him overall as a horse, 3rd start of the form cycle.
No, I don't think you can really knock him. I think he at least showed last time out going from 4.5 to 5.5 to 6.5 that the extra 8th really wasn't going to do him in. He still was game in the stretch, but I agree with you. Now he's got to go further. What's that look like? Does it just seem like, he's going to be, I don't know, beaten by 3 now or 4? What's going to happen here? It's tough for me to say. And a lot comes down to the pace of this race. And I think it's going to be potentially on the fast side, which I don't think helps him.
What makes it difficult is right next door is Marcus J, who's maybe the quickest in the field. He flew early. He cruised in that race on August 3rd. You just never know what to do with horses like this who win so impressively and so easily. He didn't get tested at all, and this will be a much tougher test for him.
Yeah, a way tougher test. But when you look at Marcus J, pretty impressive the way that he responded to Pietro Moran, was able to open up on that field. And just looked like a really easy performance from him. He's training exceptionally well. When you look at his last 2 breezes, he's meant business. The first one just looked very maintenance-like to me in terms of the time, and then he's really stepped it up. And this is a barn that I know he's going to switch surfaces, like several in here. They do really well spotting that move.
We move to Military Time. This was the lone supplement in the field for trainer Mark Casse and owner Gary Barber in St. Elias Stables. To me, when they supplement a horse in a race like this, I had to throw this one in the mix somewhere, Ashley, because initially I was wondering, and I liked some other horses maybe a bit more, but I get to him. He was very impressive. Slow start, then he makes his big move. He's up to 2 lengths off and angled around nicely. His dam was a 6-time winner on the turf. So there's some turf pedigree for this guy who wheels back quickly, for connections who just know how good these horses need to be to win races like this. If anyone has a pulse on the graded stakes races at Woodbine, it's Mark Casse.
Yeah, and these are the sorts of races that he typically has several in. You see it in this race, and you know that he's going to be locked and loaded. I was there at the races when Military Time won, and I was really impressed. I know it wasn't a big field, and to me, on paper, I know he didn't have race experience, but the pedigree stood out. He's a gun runner, but he's Ontario bred. They paid $350 for him, so you are expecting somewhat of an early result with a horse like this. And the mare was good. She was very good in her career, could kind of run on anything. But I just thought visually he looked exceptionally well winning. I think he's the type that you mentioned. You supplement, you come in here. I think he's a major player. I don't think he's going to be 12-1. I think that would be a dream of
half
mine.
Of it
he's 12-1. Yeah, probably 5-6-1 in here. And he demands to be played off of that. And I don't read into the rider change. Pietro obviously rides for Kevin Attard, the Allwellings. You think of the connections of Mancetti, and Mark Casse rides Dylan Davis a fair bit. So that doesn't faze me at all. I'm very, very intrigued by this horse, especially considering what we saw visually on debut.
Group 2 placed Wild Desert is the 10. Ashley, he comes off of a really unlucky trip last time out. He was right in the mix, and the horse in front of him kept cutting him off late in the stretch and like lugging out right into him. I'm not sure if he would have won the race, but he certainly would have been closer than beaten a length and a half in that one. Just a really unlucky circumstance late in that race. But his 3 races have all been very solid. We've talked about the connections, Appleby, Godolphin runners in these grade 1s at Woodbine, 9 for 17. So you just have to take them as live every time they show up.
I know, and I look at the name, it reminds me of Wild Desert, who won the Queen's Plate, a different Wild Desert years ago. But this colt seems pretty talented, especially stepping up to Group 2 competition last time out at Newmarket. He had a lot of things thrown his way in less than a 2-month period. You're looking at May 23rd to July 12th, and he's done everything right. He has those races at 7 Ace, Appleby. It's really hard to say anything other than that. I think that's what you need to say. I mean, you have to respect these shippers.
And we move to Jupiter. Jupiter was 5th in that soaring free race that we saw, the common race with a few of the other rivals in here. Could you find a reason to upgrade Jupiter's performance in there? I really couldn't find the excuse.
Couldn't find the excuse in the race, but I think here the distance should be his friend based on his style. Yeah. I'd like to see him sit maybe 3 lengths off of it early or 4. He should be able to be closer here. The draw doesn't necessarily help him, I'll be honest there, but I don't think he's a sprinter based on his style to date. I know on debut you go, well, he almost won gate to wire. Look at his races since then. He's trying to roll late. I think he'll be better here at a 2-turn distance.
Teddy's Rocket was one of the few with the experience going long. He wins in career debut at Saratoga, going a mile on the turf for Miguel Clement. I will say, he got a pretty perfect trip in that race. And I'm a little worried with just the outside draw in this bigger field. There were 2 horses that were battling. He was traveling well throughout. He moved through, angle around to the 2 path. It was just about as perfect as you could have asked for the way it's set up for him. So I respect his ability, Ashley. I am just worried about the outside draw, this guy getting hooked a little bit wide in this bigger field. But he could get a trip in here and could get a setup from off the pace if he can sit and make that one late run.
Yeah, I think he got a perfect setup, and I'm not trying to be critical of him because if he does offer value here, I will use him in the bottom of my exotics because I love that he has a race going a mile. I mean, that's huge, and it's a 2-turn mile. Keep on going back to that, but I think that's really important. But you talk about the perfect setup. I just watched the stretch run like 3 times, and I just wasn't blown away by it.
Agreed.
It was good. It just wasn't this like sensational performance. And I think when you look at the runner-up, I actually like the way he was traveling late. So it's just tough for me to take him here if he's going to be a short price. If he's near the morning line, I respect him. But if we get into the 6 to 1 range, I really don't want him in this race.
And when you think about just connections, a horse that comes in from Saratoga for Miguel Clement with Joel Rosario aboard, this horse probably will get bet a little bit and be closer to the range you were talking about. And then for me, I don't know if he really offers that much value. So we round out the field for the grade 1 summer, a tricky group when you have these young horses, lightly raced 2-year-olds without a lot of experience. Ashley, how did you end up in here? Who do you want to put on top?
I'm not going with the year on top. We have similar strategies, similar horses all the way across here, but I like Military Time. I mentioned the debut. I think the expectations were high. He delivered. He did it really nicely. I think added ground should be just fine for him. Excited to see him get on the grass. So we talked about it. We're not going to get 12 to 1, but he's not going to go off favorite. At least I don't think he will.
9, 10, 5, 1 for Ashley, 6, 10, 9, 5 for me. You can see we have 3 of the same 4 in the top selections there. For me, I hope he's going to just sit back. I hope they're flying early on, and I'm going to be screaming for Billy to come running late. Bill of Ice is going to be the top selection for me. Probably going to be one of the longer shots in the field. But it's always the most important for you. Whoever you play, however you play them, we wish you the best of luck.